Good afternoon. Today, I lost my spot. We're going to start on chapter 23, Samantha. We left the kids yesterday sort of in a panic because they realized the principal came in and said that they need their permission slips for the field trip tomorrow, and they realize that they might get busted if they don't have an adult with them on the field trip. So, let's see what they figure out. Chapter 23, Samantha. I have a job to do, and the entire class is depending on me. Me, Samantha O'Day. No one has really depended on me for something before. Daddy usually pays people so we can depend on them. It's a scary feeling, but it's sort of a nice feeling, too. People say that money can't buy everything. You never hear rich people saying that. Still, maybe there's something to it. Mr. Wolcott sits in his lawn chair in front of the old-timers joint. That's not my best name for the place, I admit. I'm distracted by all these good deed thoughts. He's still wearing the same brown three-piece suit and wide striped tie he always wears. I hang back. I'm a little nervous to ask him for a favor. What if he says no to me? Then what happens? That's the problem with having lots of people depend on you. You might have to let them down, even if you try your hardest. I'm surprised that I care so much about helping out. Usually I don't think about the other kids in class at all. But now I find myself really wanting to help them. Franny, Mr. Wolcott shouts, pulling me out of my deep thoughts. In black ink, my love may still shine bright. Right, I say, coming closer. I have no idea what that means, as usual. My name is Samantha, remember? Of course. I've told you of my one true love, Franny Bree. She was as lovely as a spring meadow, a delicate bloom on a hill of luscious green. Yeah, I know, I say. Her bounty is as bouncy as the sea, or you are the boundless sea, or something like that. I need to get to the point. Mr. Wolcott, I need a favor. A favor, he repeats, his index finger caressing his chin. His eyebrows lift. He stands up, places one hand on his heart, and stretches out the other arm, as if addressing a queen. His eyes had a sad look the other day, but I don't see any of that now. They glimmer, full of life. I wish my eyes twinkled like that. Fashion magazines don't tell you how to get your eyes to light up. Being your slave, what should I do but tend upon the hours and times of your desire? I have no precious time at all to spend, no service to do till you require, he says. I'm not sure, but I think he's offering to help. Excellent. I might not be someone who gets invited to birthday parties, but I won't be someone who lets everyone down. We've got a problem at school. We're going on a class trip, and we need an adult to go with us. You'll have to pretend you're our teacher. Pretend? Like acting in a play? Exactly. It's been so long since I've acted in front of an audience, he says this quietly to himself. I worry that he won't agree to help us. Then what? I feel antsy. I keep myself from tapping my foot impatiently. I suppose that's why good deeds feel good, because they feel horrible when you don't know if they'll succeed. Mr. Wolcott clears his throat, and when he speaks louder and gestures, his arms sweeping with enthusiasm. Yes, I shall do it. For all the world a stage, and all the men and women merely players. Then he smiles a bright smile with white gleaming and nearly perfect teeth. His eyes twinkle so brightly I have to look away. I grin as widely as he does. I really don't think anything feels better than having a good deed get done, not even buying shoes. But an actor needs his props, exclaims Mr. Wolcott, whirling around in a circle, his arms swirling up and down and around. Costumes, makeup. Should I wear a fake mustache? Or long flowing wig? How about a top hat and tails? A walking cane. Perhaps I could go as Prince of Denmark, old Hamlet himself. I was thinking you could just act like a teacher. Mr. Wolcott pumps his fist. Splendid idea. Why, this will be the greatest role of my life. Still, I need a name. A character without a name is like a play without an act. Pick whatever name you want. How about Macbeth? Maybe you want to work on that, I suggest. He nods. Perhaps. But thank you for helping us. He could call himself anything, and I'd be super excited. Well, he could call himself almost anything. I want to give him a giant, grateful hug, but instead I pat pat him on the shoulder. We work out the other details, and I bid him farewell. I actually say, I bid thee farewell. Talking to Mr. Wilcott for a while will make you speak like that. As I wave goodbye and head toward my building, all I can think is, I did it. I found our pretend teacher, me, Samantha, and Daddy had nothing to do with it. Winter break starts next week, and we're going to Hawaii. It's been over a year since we were last there, which seems like forever. The warm tropical sun would feel great, but I doubt it will make me feel any warmer than I do now. I'm walking on a ray of sunshine, even though it is cold and a cloudy day. Our doorman, George, smiles at me, and I scurry past him into the lobby. Welcome home, Miss Samantha. Fare thee well, George, I say as I rush past, and then bite my tongue, trying to shake the Mr. Wilcott sayings from my mouth. I head straight to the elevator. I need to change clothes for dance class, and I'm running late. Mrs. Flatley, our teacher, said that we might start our dance for the end of the year recital today. She'll likely pick parts right after winter break. Last year, Penelope Poppers was the lead dancer in our class recital. She's the best dancer for sure. But I've been practicing really hard. Maybe I'll get a solo this year. If not, I'm sure Daddy can help fix that. Doing things by yourselves feels great, but sometimes you still need your parents to take care of things for you. It's a lot easier anyway. Chapter 24, Eric. I hand my parent permission slip to Lacey, who collects them for the class trip. My mom's name is scrawled on the bottom. When I asked Mom for a signature last night, her face turned red and she glared at the slip. The night before? What sort of school are they running? I'm calling your teacher. This is unacceptable. I made up a story about how Mrs. Bryce's phone is broken and that she also has laryngitis, and we didn't have permission slips earlier because the school printer blew up. It wasn't my best story, but it did the job. Mom signed the slip. I didn't think it would matter anyway. I figured Samantha wouldn't find a substitute teacher, and then our secret wouldn't be a secret anymore. But what do you know? I was wrong. Samantha brought an adult, just like she promised. He's old and wispy thin. He says his name is Mr. Chips, but I don't think that's his real name. He's wearing a brown tweed jacket with patches on the elbows, a pink bow tie, and a monocle in his left eye. I've never seen a monocle up close before. He looks like an English professor from some old movie. He removes his eyewear and holds it up, admiring it. His voice booms as if he's talking over a loud crowd, although no one else is talking. All teachers need monocles, don't you agree? Doesn't it make me look academic? I'm not really, says Samantha. Mr. Chip shrugs and puts the monocle in his inside jacket pocket. He is full of energy. He waves his arm as if he's performing on stage while saying odd things like, though this be madness, yet there is a method, isn't it? I think he's quoting Shakespeare. I recognize one or two lines from Hamlet, the play that I'm trying to read, but Shakespeare's words don't make any more sense to me when I hear them than when I read them. Mr. Chip starts talking about how he's some great actor and about some old actress he used to love, but it's confusing. All of us in class keep nodding our heads and throwing him pretend smiles. Samantha looks like she wants to hide under a desk. If we get through today, it will be a miracle. Finally, there's a knock on the door. Mrs. Frank, the school secretary, enters the room and tells us that our bus is waiting for us to board. She waves to Adam and says, have you eaten any more homework or detention slips lately? Adam shakes his head, blushes, and says, not yet. I have no idea what they're talking about. Mr. Frank collects the permission slips from Lacey, counting them out, and then satisfied leads us out the door. We follow her single file down the hallway into the bus that's parked outside. I'm last in line, and Mr. Chips is in the front, but I can hear him clearly. He rambles on and on during the entire walk with a long monologue that begins, to be or not to be, that is the question. I recognize the quote. It's a famous speech from Hamlet. Finally, we exit the school doors. The bus is waiting right out front for us with the motor running. As we gather around the doors to go inside, a deep voice calls from behind us, wait! It's Principal Klein. We were so close to getting on the bus, too. But seeing our principal standing next to me reminds me how much trouble we can get into for keeping this humongous secret. This is going to be very bad. Principal Klein approaches Mr. Chips. Our principal is a big man, and next to the ultra-thin Mr. Chips, he looks like a balloon. Who are you? He asks our pretend teacher, his big hands rubbing against his chin. Samantha is next to them. Before Mr. Chips can answer the principal question, Before Mr. Chip can answer the principal's question, Samantha said, "That's Mr. Chips, our chaperone?" Principal Klein scans our group. But where's Mrs. Bryce? Without missing a beat, the entire class says, "The bathroom." Principal Klein hesitates for a moment. His brow furrows. I think he's about to accuse our entire class of keeping a secret that Mr. Chips is a fake. But then our phony teacher rests his hands on the Principal Klein's shoulder and says, "Dear sir, do not worry. I, Mr. Chips, teacher extraordinaire, am honored to shepherd these sheep. Oh, this learning, what a thing it is. What a responsibility to captivate their minds and yes?" asked Principal Klein. Mr. Chip looks at Samantha. Then he whispers to her, "Line, please. Just tell them you're in charge until Miss Bryce gets back." Samantha whispers back, just loud enough for me to hear. "And I'm in charge," exclaims Mr. Chips to our principal. As he says this, he removes the monocle from his pocket, puts it in his eye, and peers at the principal. "See? Don't I look academic?" Samantha's face turns bright red, but Mr. Chips merely smiles. There's a moment of hesitation from our principal, a moment where I'm convinced we're busted. But then our principal pats Mr. Chips on the back and says, "Great! Thanks for helping today. Have a wonderful trip." He turns around and heads back into school. And that's that. My feet are still quivering as the bus door opens and we march up the steps. But I look at Mr. Chips. He is a great actor. I may not have followed half of what he was saying, but he almost had me convinced he was a real teacher, too. I'm the last in line for the bus. I sit by myself in the empty front seats right behind the bus driver. I take a deep breath, anxious for the bus to start moving. "Are we all here?" he asks the driver. He doesn't know Mr. Chips isn't our regular teacher. "Yes, we are," says Samantha. "Then exit stage left," Mr. Chips declares, and we're off. Chapter 25, Kyle. We're walking to the next museum exhibit when Brian yells to me, "Last one to the drinking fountain is a rotten egg." I'm no rotten egg, that's for sure. I don't even like regular eggs unless you're throwing them at someone, I think. Some eggs are hard and others are runny, but throw an egg at a head, that's pretty funny. Brian gets a big lead to the fountain because he starts running before he even finishes saying egg, which is cheating, but I'm way faster than him or Seth. Seth gets off to a poor start, so he's got rotten egg written all over him. I'm almost smacked into an old lady who's walking in the hallway. "Excuse me," she snaps, but I sidestep her just before we collide. I skid slightly on the floor, but overtake Brian at the wire, reaching for the water fountain 1 arm length in front. "I smell rotten eggs," I say, and then take a long winter sip from the spout. Seth arrives last. I keep my finger on the fountain button so the water keeps spraying and slaps my palm against it. Water splashes into Seth and Brian, a big wave on their shirts, and a little puddle lands on the pants of an old guy standing next to her. "Watch it," he huffs at me. "Sorry," I say with a giggle. A few other adults glare at us in the hallway. Still, this is the best field trip ever. No teacher, no rules, we can run in the halls. The rest of our class is already looking at the Native American exhibit, and we join them. Inside the room, glass displays feature Native Americans wearing long, feathery headdresses and tan shirts and bright red-green pattern around the shoulders. On the wall hangs a painting of an entire caravan of Native Americans hunting buffaloes. An old canoe dangles from the ceiling. A sign next to me describes how people lived back in the early 1400s, way before English settlers came to the area. I lean over to read it. "Boring," Brian burps out from behind me. I open my mouth and push out a burp of my own. It's not as loud as Brian's, but for an on-the-spot, unprepared burp, it's not half bad. "Listen to me," says Seth. His burp rumbles for 10 seconds easy. We crack up. "Knock it off," says Paige, who's standing near us with Lacey and Maggie. She folds her arms and glares at us with disapproval etched into her pursed lips. "You guys should grow up and try learning something. You sound like burping moose. You can't be an ignorant bullies your whole lives, you know." "I know stuff," retort, as Paige shakes her head. The 3 girls glare at us, and I frown back at them. Sure, I don't get good grades like they get, but that doesn't mean I don't know stuff. books and school things aren't the only things worth knowing. For example, it takes real talent to burp well. You have to swallow a bunch of air, open your airway, and let it out quickly. Not everyone can do that. And I wrote a play. I make up rhymes that takes talent too. I'm not just an ignorant bully or a burping moose. Don't worry, you can count on me. I'm a new Kyle, just wait and see. The girls stomp away as Brian burps again, short and quiet. Seth laughs, but I don't. Burping doesn't seem so funny anymore. The exhibit is actually interesting. I turn my back on the burping moose boys and try to focus on it. Right next to us, a glass case is filled with all sorts of arrowheads, and over in the corner sits a teepee. I hear Seth burp behind me and snicker. Paige, Lacey, and Maggie stomp straight toward Mr. Chips, who stands with Samantha and Giovanna. All the girls talk to him. Paige points at us with stabbing, angry gestures. I bet she's telling him we are ignorant. Mr. Chip answers her in a loud, booming voice. It's even louder than Brian's burp, so I can hear it clearly across the room. Love all, trust a few, do wrong to none. I have no idea what he's talking about. Brian burps, Seth laughs. There are plenty of other people in the exhibit room, too. Some stare at Mr. Chips and some glare at us. Brian burps again. Knock it off, I say. What's gotten into you, snaps Brian. Nothing. I read the exhibit sign next to me. Brian burps, but I ignore him. Let's go to the next room, says Seth. I'm not ready to go, though. I haven't finished looking at the exhibits in this room. There's a display across the room showing a bunch of people dancing around a fire, their faces covered in paint. It looks interesting. I bet we could make a break for it, Brian whispers to me. That old dude wouldn't even notice. Last one to the cafeteria is a rotten egg, says Seth. Knock it off, guys, I grumble. You're acting like ignorant moose. Someone shouts, and it's not Brian or Seth doing the yelling either. It's Mr. Chips again. Now he's arguing with the secretary guard. Samantha and Eric are with them. I wonder what's going on. Thou lump of foul deformity, Mr. Chips says loudly. The tartness of your face, sour, ripe grapes. I denounce you, sir. I have no idea what Mr. Chips is talking about, but he's angry and he looks like he wants to punch the guard. Yow, yow, yow. Uh-oh. I wonder what Mr. Chips is upset about. We'll find out tomorrow.